thrilled to be here. My name is Arielle Russo. I'm the Senior Director of Content and Community, as well as the head of our Center of Excellence. And what that really means is, it's just a fancy way of saying I have the great honor and pleasure of connecting with today's brightest, most impactful brand leaders. It also means that I have access to marketers' shared challenges, goals, you name it, and I have a close lens into how our partners, all of you here today, serve their clients. So with that great responsibility, we are here today to talk about the power of rebranding. And we'll dive into the power of rebranding. We'll dive into how we can evolve and continue to strengthen our relationships with our clients. Because in today's world, when we think about rebranding, it's not just about changing logos or slogans. It's about reshaping perceptions. It's about building relationships and continuing to fuel growth. So I have three remarkable panelists today. And we're going to dive into all of the intricacies and challenge when it comes to a rebrand. So why don't we get started with some simple introductions. Why don't you tell me your background and your experience on how you have solidified yourself as a rebranding expert? I'll start with you, Josh.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me, Arielle. I've been told to keep this part of my remarks brief. So, Josh Golden, I'm the CMO for Quad. I have been, you might know me from famous shows as when I went Brand Ad Age for 5 years prior to this. Before that, I was head of marketing for Xerox. I was head of marketing I ran digital, the entire digital division for NBC Universal. So I've always been responsible for figuring out where something was and then helping it get to the next phase. So I'm very happy to be on this panel, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Hi.
Push the button. There we go. You got it.
Nailed it. Push it once.
Hi, I'm Crystal Park. I head up marketing over at The Weather Company. We're an IBM company. I would say that my experience comes from a lot of companies that have gone through a growth and repositioning period, right? So prior to The Weather Company, I was at SXM Media, which was Pandora for business. And then prior to that, does anyone remember Oath? Yeah. Fun ride. I was part of the AOL Yahoo Oath Verizon Media rebrand ×3 journey. So that's my experience.
Hi, my name is Becker. I run trade marketing and sales communications for Paramount Advertising. Thank you to Brand Innovators for having me. As saying earlier, we're usually the ones putting people on panels, so it's a new experience to be up here. But I have seen the company through, I come from the CBS Interactive side. I joined 6 years ago. We've gone from CBS Interactive to Viacom CBS to Paramount. I think all of us in the media industry are familiar with rebranding ourselves. So my rebranding journey is I started as a reporter covering this business for broadcasting and cable. Went to business school to rebrand myself, spent a few years in integrated marketing at NBC. And then started a marketing and comms team at Tribeca Film Institute, which is the nonprofit arm of Tribeca. Joined CBS to run the integrated marketing team for CBS News Digital as it went through a rebrand, and have evolved into this totally different role, running trade marketing.
Thank you. All right, let's dive into your recent brand evolutions, and I'm going to start with you, Anne, at Paramount Advertising, not to be confused with Paramount's recent rebrand, which Anne will also talk about. But tell us about the transformation internally with Paramount Advertising.
Sure, of course. So I mentioned I come from the CBS Interactive side. CBS merged with Viacom in 2020, and in 2022 rebranded the company to Paramount from Viacom CBS based upon a great amount of research and competitive intel, et cetera. And then in the ad sales division, we went through a reorg that precipitated our own rebrand about 6 months later in Q4 22, where we rebranded as Paramount Advertising. So we were still disparate teams. You had CBS Interactive, CBS, and Viacom ad sales. And so it was important to us to rebrand as our company had as Paramount Advertising and go to market as one unified, cohesive sales team.
And Crystal, you had shared with me that rebranding the Weather Company was actually more of a homecoming. Can you talk more about that and the journey there?
Yeah, definitely. So back in 2016, the Weather Company was sold to IBM. And a year later, they rebranded to IBM Watson Advertising. It's a mouthful. And that's when Watson was all over Jeopardy. It was competing against Ken Jennings. We like to say that Watson was the original AI, right? Fast forward to 2023. Sorry, first day of school for my kids today. Fast forward to 2023, it is a homecoming. We recently rebranded back to the weather company, mainly because we realized that in a world of where AI is everywhere, and I feel like AI has become more accessible and mainstream because of ChatGPT, we had to figure out how do we become a unique player again. And we know that weather data and weather insights is our core and our foundation. AI plays a part of that, but because weather data and its application across marketing and media, aviation, defense, there's a lot of different industries we play in, it only made sense to come back to the weather company. So we were actually only one business line of many that was rebranded outside the company, so it feels very holistic as a brand and as a business, and for our employees too.
What a journey. Okay, Josh, why don't you take us through the long-standing evolution of Quad? I mean, from print to additional areas of investment. How are you continuing to, as you put it to me on our Zoom, endlessly solve problems for your clients?
Thank you. So Quad, some of you may or may not know, sends primarily, or has historically been known for manufacturing and printing, and that's where they grew up. So we send I think it's 9% of the country's mail. You're welcome. And that specifically gave us the sort of juice to okay, so obviously we're solving problems, we're printing magazines, we're printing catalogs, we're doing direct mail. The question became, marketers were like, well, can you do our in-store thing? Can you do our signage? So we're endlessly solving the problem of the marketer to go from where it was to where it was expanded to, and that we brought 10 or 12 production companies and 2 large agencies to allow us to have a full through-the-line production solution, which we framed as a marketing experience company, because if marketers are endlessly focused on delivering the best consumer experience that they possibly can, who, may I ask, ladies and gentlemen, is actually helping the marketer's job be easier? Answer, no one. Because there's not a whole lot of people are out there trying to figure out, well, how do we help the marketer whole job and whole journey be easier? So when I joined 2 years ago after my job at Time Ad Age, which was wonderful, it allowed me to sort of be at the center of what I knew marketers were looking for, and that journey was very explicitly defined by we need to rebrand the company and have it have a story that is so explicitly connected to what marketers are needing, so it's much more logical. And that's what launched me into this journey of the rebrand for Quad.
Thank you.
How did you do?
You did great.
Thank you.
Everyone is doing great, by the way.
The logic approach is always a good one.
Thank you.
So it's clear that all of you have gone through these incredible transformations, but it's also clear that it's not an easy feat, right? So I want to go into the driving factors on why you went into rebrand. I'm going to start with Crystal. You shared with me that weather is the original influencer, so I think that's an important component to talk about when we're discussing factors. So.
Yeah, I mentioned, when we were IBM Watson Advertising, it made a lot of sense, right? I think as we started to go through the growth journey within being part of IBM, we realized that, again, the unique piece of our business is the proprietary weather data. We have 100 Mets and data scientists that sit in our company. They're looking at conditions, different weather factors, different seasonalities, and it's getting refreshed every 15 minutes. That's something that we wanted to lean into wholeheartedly. And so that was really the impetus that kind of kicked off the rebrand process. It's actually a great thing because we're going to be growing outside of some of these verticals into other industries. And so it only made sense that the weather company was coming to you, with the great insights that we have access to. And so, I think rebrands always happen sometimes when there's like an internal organization, right? And so we had to approach it from how do our clients perceive us, but also like how do we retain and get our employees really excited about this too? Yeah.
Josh, you want to answer this next?
That was such a great. I don't know if I could do anything. What was the question?
The question is, what was the ultimate driving factor into your rebrand? I mean, of course, there are so many reasons.
I would say that it's a 52-year-old family-owned company. It's public, but it's family. You know, it's still the original founder's son at the helm, Joel Quadracci. So you can imagine when I would say like, hey, I'm thinking of new names. She's like, well, I kind of like my name and things like that. So a rebrand for us was much more about how do I come back with the spirit of what a rebrand can do and signal the marketplace that Quad is like a holding company that you've never heard of. It's a $3 billion company that everyone kind of uses, but we don't know. So how do we signal that without changing the name or doing it? Yeah, so rebrand was a thing. And so I was like, okay, so we're gonna change the logo. And he was like, no. I was like, okay, so we're not changing the logo, got it. So what can we do to help at the intersection of like, what is gonna be that's gonna make people aware of what Quad is, but give people like oh, that's interesting. So working with Joel and a wonderful creative team externally allowed us to figure out what design system can look like. It feels like a rebrand, but it's still taking the core heritage of the brand for 52 years and not changing too dramatically. And that was the impetus, and that was frankly allowed us to come up with a design system that was signaled to the marketplace, Quad is something you should be considering for your marketing needs. And that was the impetus, and the signal was the most important piece to how do we come up with something that's actually important enough that people will start to think, like, well, I never thought of Quad. I guess of course they print my thing, but also we can do the data and analytics piece. We can do the digital messaging piece. We can do the creative development or all the other pieces. And that was the impetus behind it.
I also think, and I know Anne, you could probably relate to this because we talked about this, but the whole idea of making it intuitive, making it simple, right, for our clients. Because at the end of the day, our clients are humans too, right? They want things that are easy. They want things that make their day-to-day a little bit easier. And so when we were Watson Advertising, it was like we had to get them to jump through these mental hoops to understand, why are you walking into this very immersive weather space, right? It was almost like a two-step explanation of our brand. And ultimately, for us, it was all about how do we make our customers and our clients easier, and being able to work with us, being able to communicate with us, make it more digestible in a simple way.
Right, exactly. Ours was a reorg that precipitated a rebrand, and we say we want it to be easier to work with and easier to work for, to your point about retention. And so we realized we have a great, complex, diverse offering, but we realized that our clients were bearing the burden of all the complexity. And so we are reorged to a holdco-based model where they have a single point of entry into everything that Paramount Advertising has to offer. Our clients are people, and so we wanted to make their lives easier by streamlining, and that really was the driving impetus behind the rebrand. And then going from there, we really streamlined our narratives that we're putting out in the marketplace around just a handful, and that's unrivaled convergent reach and streaming, premium popular content, advanced advertising capabilities and creative capabilities that are unmatched, and an unwavering commitment to inclusive storytelling. And it's really those 4 or 5 key narratives that everything else falls under, those umbrellas. So it was, complex. We bear the burden internally, our clients should have, and that was the driving force behind our reorg that precipitated rebrand.
I love that, and thank you also to diving into my next question, and because I'm going to ask you to now. The name of the panel is called The Art and Science of Rebranding. So let's dive into the approach. Crystal, why don't you start first with the weather company?
Yeah, I think the approach always has to start with an insight, right? And I think that insight has to come from some extensive client conversations as well as non-client conversations. I think it's important to understand why certain brands or clients don't work with you, right? What's their perception? Are you too complex and difficult to work with?
Yes.
Yeah, usually the answer is yes and yes and yes. But I think it has to start with the insight, but also what are the client needs? What are they, what are their challenges that a rebrand can help communicate, right? And so our approach has, with anything really, has always rooted with a hypothesis, an insight, and then going out and really talking to the market, right? Without that feedback and without that honest kind of feedback loop, you're kind of building in a vacuum, and you're kind of building for what you think is best. And client partners, non-clients, as well as employees, and their feedback is super important into how you rebrand, how you reposition, how you remessage. There's a lot of, and I'm sure all of us up here have experienced it, I'm sure there's been a lot of acquisitions, a lot of mergers, there's a lot of emotions and egos that you also have to manage and through the process. And so, again, taking a very human approach to understanding the challenges and starting with that insight is how we started it. And I would say it's how we've always started it in my previous jobs as well.
I will pile on and say the insight is a wonderful way to begin. Actually, I have a human being is my insight machine, which is Jacqueline Lieberman, who runs a company called Brand Crudo, which I recommend if you don't know. She's worth to look up. So she and I work together in an agency with another gentleman and I, Kevin and Gene out there. We're blessed to have a wonderful, brilliant strategist who helped us figure out always what's the core narrative. What is the singular sentence that you can say about this brand that no one else can define? And that singular sentence that you all have to agree to, done in a workshop format, helped. That was the first step. That's step one. When I was at that age, I was always like, hey, would you please talk about how you actually made that campaign come out? Well, we don't talk about our partners. I'm going to tell you all the details here, because I think it's, if you're thinking about a rebrand, you got to know, like, how do I really do this? So you start with the narrative, then you get a wonderful agency. We just use a design agency called Champions, which is a wonderful, brilliant design agency out of Pentagram, and they were fabulous. They took the inside of the narrative and then drove that into 4 different design systems, all of which Joel, my boss, hated, because he was like, it's changing us too much. It's too far. We're a 52-year-old family-owned company or a family company. We can't go so far. So it took a gentle negotiation to be like, well, what's possible? What are you willing to go to? As a CMO, I was like, listen, you didn't bring me here for to do nothing, so we have to do something. And the next steps were having those pieces sort of lie in place. You had to see it. And then internally, this is the magic piece, which I know you all know. It wasn't just me, Josh Golden, walking around being like, hey, we see this stuff. Everyone else has to get excited about it. So it's that internal telling and whispering, like, do you like this? Would you prefer this or this? And then having everyone else sort of talk about it and get excited about it internally. The rebrand is done from the inside out. It is not just the CMO going like, I'm going to lead a rebrand, because everyone loves to hate. And I will tell you that it's a thing that you look at your buddies, that you're like in your office, like, and then they go behind you like, do you even like that thing? The point is, you got to get them first and say, hey, I'm doing this thing, do you hate it? And they can hate on it privately, and then you say, I'm fixing that, thank you. And then you bring it out the next. So now, by the way, when I actually exposed this to the senior executive leadership of the company, they all saw it, they all loved it, they all told me what they hated, and I changed all things so they could see their bodies in it. And that, if there's one insight that you take away from this panel, it's not the CMO or marketing that leads a rebrand. It is the company and the company's leadership, and the CEO was the most important partner I had in this. He was absolutely critical. He told me, after I literally was up in the middle of the night, literally on prednisone, not purposely, but anyway, I wrote a speech about why the rebrand was so important from his father, who had passed. And I wrote it in his voice, his father's voice. I don't write. What was I thinking? It was 2 in the morning, guys. Anyway, so I wrote this speech, and I flew out to Milwaukee, to Wisconsin, to read it to him. And he was like, we're doing the rebrand. I'm like, sold! Well, the point was, he had to get on board, and he needed the commitment, and then he was able to feel comfortable about it. Those kinds of key things, that process that you just heard me walk through, was the thing. Then hiring the agency, getting the work done, that's the simple parts. It was that heavy lift that got the process piece there. Sorry, it was a long answer, but I wanted to have you have that benefit.
No, I love that, and thank you so much both for diving into the internal challenges, and we talked a lot about, and I know you're going to be excited to talk about this, but tell us more about
She looks so excited.
how you're empowering the sellers within your organization and what that looks like internally.
Yeah, of course, wholeheartedly agree that the rebrand starts from the inside out. So we really believe in end-to-end communications and marketing strategy, whereby we start with internally empowering our sellers to really believe in the brand, understand its core narrative, such that when we then go out and execute our external tactics, they are best empowered to be our best brand ambassadors, amplifying what we're doing in the marketplace. And so when we rebranded to Paramount Advertising, it was Q4 of last year. We kicked off this year with a huge offsite called Elevate. It was the first time, because of the pandemic, bringing together all these formerly disparate sales teams. We've really doubled down on our L&D efforts, our culture efforts, fully rebranded and a full audit of our internal comms tactics, scaled things that were in one pocket of the org across. And so yeah, fully agree with you there. We also have a wonderful audience impact intelligence team that at that offsite did a whole brand identity study for Paramount Advertising with the employees, and so truly believe in investing in empowering the sales team such that when we're out there leveraging our external tactics, they can amplify them and feel really empowered in doing so.
All right, and so you touched on the word impact. So now I want to approach, the next conversation to the outcome of a rebrand. Can you, each of you, delve into how you're measuring this impact of a rebrand, and what are some important factors to consider? Josh, I'll start with you.
Thank you. So Cannes was our moment of, listen, I've never timed it this way, so don't give me credit, but like it just happened to be like 4 weeks before Cannes. Wow, we launched our big campaign at Cannes. I got lucky because I could have never planned for it. But the effort of a rebrand is not felt until you actually can show it in a campaign and an effort. So we had a major campaign that launched our marketing experience training that was called Built on Quad. And that Built on Quad was we took over the Cannes, the airport in Nice. The Wisconsin company taking over the airport and it's got money. Well, we did. And that framing and that visibility was measured, of course, obviously in the quantity of people, technically texting me like, hey, bro, I saw your stuff. But also the visibility of the lift that it gave to having Quad be positioned as a player in the space at Cannes was massive. Having the opportunity to create, meetings and conversations with people be willing to participate at a level that was like, oh, that's different. But more importantly, the lead machine, the flywheel, if you will, started to creak starting to get rolling. People started to be interested, like, yeah, you do my other things, but can you do that other thing for me now? Knowing that we handle a full offering, and people started to come in the door as leads. So not only the top of funnel brand awareness and visibility, but also starting the beginnings of the bottom funnel of like actual lead generation. So both were measured.
Yeah, for us, the launch was more internally focused at first, right? We needed to get our client, our sellers, our employees, we needed to get them excited, like you guys were doing for Quad, so that they could go out and evangelize for us. There are frontline folks, marketing can only do so much. It's the, foots on the street, the feet on the street, excuse me, that really we need to get in and convince and get their buy-in and have them be our evangelists. Cannes was also our coming out
See that?
To the
Popular.
For some reason, we tend to let the tentpole schedule dictate when things happen, which sometimes it's great and sometimes it's not, because you have 4 weeks or you have less than 4 weeks, right? And so what we did, we're not along the Quasset in one of the hotels or in the cabanas or at the beach. We actually have we always have had a 3-floor art gallery. And this year we rebranded as the Weather Company and created this really immersive, multi-sensory experience.
It was awesome, by the way.
Did you come?
I did.
Oh.
It was awesome.
I hope you loved it.
It was also hot.
It was very hot. We have the best AC here. But you came through this raindrop, right? And you got this like a moment of like cold blast air, and you walked in, and our activation was really focused on catalytic moments in history that could have changed with the weather, right? So think about the Battle of Waterloo and how it was rainy and Napoleon took his troops into battle and lost because it was so muddy, right? What had happened? What would have happened if it wasn't muddy? What if it was a sunny day? What would the outcome have been? And that was really us, leaning again into the fact that we are now the Weather Company, and making sure that you can't miss who we are, the value we bring. And then, If you went upstairs, we also worked with a lot of brands like Elf and Toyota and Uber Green to showcase how they were leaning into weather strategies for a lot of their marketing campaigns. And we worked with these AI artists to create these generative AI sculptures that really combined, again, their weather strategy along with their campaign goals, and got some really crazy art pieces out of it. And so all along that 3-story structure and all along the Quad, it shouldn't have been hard to miss that Watson Advertising was no longer there and that we were coming out as the weather company. And I think when you look at success, it's really the client and the industry picking up on it, really understanding how this makes intuitive sense for us. And for our internal sellers, it's like, it's relief for them that they don't have to go through the explanation once they introduce themselves and where they work, right? And so just making that easy for not only our sellers but for our clients to understand was really how we measured success and impact.
So I think standing out, like how you talked through, Crystal, is an important part of the conversation. So Anne, I would love for you to expand upon the impact at Paramount Advertising and what that has done for you.
Yeah, of course. We were again doing, I'll go with a different example as our big debut and making this unique after the Paramount Advertising rebrand, which was the upfront. So we went a different direction this year. We stepped back from the major stage show. The CBS side had done Carnegie Hall for decades, and the whole rebrand again was streamline, simplify, make our clients' lives easier. And so we did a tailored suite of dinners by Holdco. They were really elegant, sit down, smaller, much smaller than the big stage show and the huge party afterwards, where you really can have an effective, intimate conversation. And we brought in talent, and we showed some videos, and we had some speeches, and there was a really wonderful little, almost like a museum exhibition of key pieces of the Paramount brand, and we got such wonderful feedback on that from our clients. By the way, these were before we got out, before the May traditional upfront stage show window, and we got such great feedback. Like, we wish everybody could do this. We actually had productive conversations sitting down at these dinners, and so that's sort of the anecdotal, sort of qualitative feedback that we're looking for. Was this rebrand effective? Are we making your lives easier? Are we easier to work with? So yeah, I think you'll see us continuing that strategy going forward. And then just from a quant, we love data on my team, so we're constantly analyzing the effectiveness of every external tactic that we do. Are people reading or skimming our newsletters? Are they engaging? Are they, is our social platform on Paramount Advertising, LinkedIn growing? So a mix of qualitative and quant, but from a unique impact standpoint, we're really pleased with how those upfront dinners went.
Do you feel going smaller, more intimate, kind of like the attendee makeup changed for the better?
I think so, yeah. I mean, again, the whole reorg was structured for the Holdco model, and then they're empowered by the specialty teams in their area of expertise. And so, yeah, we were really able to curate them, our top partners from each Holdco, and really tailor make each dinner unique by Holdco. So yeah, I think so.
Thank you. Okay, so we're nearing the end of the panel, but I think this is an important question to leave off with. For anyone in the room who's contemplating a rebrand or currently going through a rebrand, what is the advice you have? I'll start with you, Josh.
Oh, gosh, okay. Okay. I used to believe when I was starting my time at Quad that I could go out way in front and be like, I was the speedboat way out in front of the battleship of Quad, which is 14,000 people and $3 billion, a massive, massive company. And I was a speedboat, and I'm like, we're over here. And I turned around and I was like, where is everybody? I left the boat in the dock and I was just gone. So I believe I switched boats and metaphors I became a tugboat. I'm going to stay very close to the battleship and just nudge it just a little bit. And I think the advice that I would provide was that you cannot separate marketing from the rebrand effort. It has to be connected to the company's core, how it makes money, what's driving the future interest, what's the problem that we look to solve. To separate it and be like, it's splashy and it's fancy pants, it's going to be missed. So that is my suggestion of a metaphor for you all. The speedboat is the logical, shiny thing that marketers then want to do, but the tugboat is the more functional, low torque thing that can actually have an impact on the organization.
Love a good metaphor.
Thank you very much. I'm a metaphor professional expert.
So one thing you may not know about me is that I have 5 kids. I have 3 stepkids and 2 of my own. They range from 18 to 4. And so my motto with anything in life, in general, is to keep it simple, right? It's these types of exercises, rebrands, whether you're doing it because of a reorg or because you're reviving a brand or you're going through an acquisition or whatnot, they can get out and they can grow and morph into things so quickly, right? And so just keeping it simple, like being very focused on the goal as well as the insight that got you to think about how and why you want to rebrand. I would, my other kind of piece of advice is, and I think I heard Fernando talk about like agencies that you work with. We actually, at one of my companies, we worked with a really small agency of 1. And this guy, you know, there's benefits to working with large agencies and there's benefits to working with smaller independent, and we chose the independent team of 1 agency, and he was fantastic, very nimble, very agile, could flex to kind of, again, when we weren't focusing on the simple and kind of really focused, he was able to get us focused and he was able to really, you know, kind of move through the journey with us. And so if you guys are looking at agencies to rebrand along with, you know, don't forget the smaller kind of independent ones as well as the larger ones too.
I will double down on the internal sales empowerment and enablement point that most of us have made earlier, and then I'll also double down on streamlining your narrative. So clients are inundated and bombarded with messaging from so many partners all day, and so it's the same 4 narratives that I kind of rattled off earlier that you'll see from us in every tactic that we're putting out there externally, from our social, our newsletters. I'm going to do a little plug to follow us on Paramount Advertising LinkedIn, because we put out a really great newsletter leading into the mountain of Paramount metaphor called the Peak. That's a great venue to showcase our thought leadership. And you'll see those same narratives in a trade campaign for Paramount Advertising coming to an elevator near you this fall.
All right, well, I think we should open it up for questions. Does anyone have a question?
You want me to? I'll just stand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I
No,
can
I'm good.
volunteer. Yeah.
So, in the rebranding process, very delicate, there are probably people that you have lost. Audience and perception is everything. So, who did you lose that surprised you, and did you feel you had to spend time to get them back or to explain this new narrative?
Who feels?
I have a thought on this one. So the legacy part of our business, which is primarily manufacturing of the magazines catalog, that group had trouble seeing how they fit into the new positioning, and it was what I mentioned earlier. Going back and really asking what it was that they were missing, and we added a piece later after the rebrand. I was like, you know what? Well, not after the work had started, and that was this framing of this concept that everyone at Quad is a maker, because they felt we were very focused on the agency services and not so much on the printing presses. It's like making the machine that works. And I said, well, the truth is, everyone here is a maker, and the person's eyes lit up. It was like, that is what I needed to hear about how to see myself in the work and the rebrand. So sometimes, like as a marketer, you're like, I got an idea. How about this? And so I think that's the piece that was helpful. But I did lose that team. They felt like they weren't included in the future vision of the company, and we had to pull back some of the language to make certain, or add language in, so that they felt like they could be part of it. That was just a quick thought.
Yeah, I would say, I mentioned that I worked at AOL and Yahoo and Oath and Verizon Media. And through that journey, you had a lot of legacy AOLers, a lot of legacy Yahoo folks who bled those colors, right? And so really being...
AOL as well.
We're all here on AOL.
So, I think making sure the employee piece has to be super important. Taking care of your employees first has to be paramount, right? Yes, we are rebranding to make our clients' lives easier, but you don't get there without your employee base and bringing them along. And I think when we were doing internal interviews as well as client interviews, as well as the non-client interviews, I think that really made a difference in knowing that the groups that had been there for 10, 12, 15 years were always part of the solution or part of the outcome, right? I think to Josh's points, it's not a CMO who sits in their chair and dictates what happens or what the brand becomes. It's a collective, team effort, I would say, and to make sure that you're thinking about not just the engineer or the marketing team, but how does this affect, your customer service call centers, right? I think that's super important.
And I'll agree about there's more the risk of losing people when you go through a rebrand that is tied to a reorg. We have multiple hundreds of people in our division, and I think something like 85% of them got new jobs, or their jobs changed as a result of this reorg. So, and that's major. So I mentioned the offsite that we had. We brought in some futurists. We brought in this wonderful woman named Angela Duckworth, who's written this great book called Grit, if anyone's familiar with that. And we really talked about fostering a growth mindset and a learning mindset. And I mentioned that Paramount Advertising brand identity study where we curated tables of people who came from the various legacies to talk about, well, what are the best attributes of your legacy brand, how you perceive the others to be. If you had to streamline your list and pick 2 to 3 things from each or from your favorites from your legacy brand, what would you like to see in Paramount Advertising moving forward? So I agree on more the risk or the fear of attrition, but what we sort of did to get over that hurdle.
We got it. Nope, we got it. Sorry, guys.
Tell us later.
Time later. Well, thank you so much for such an amazing, incredible, fruitful panel. I hope you all walked away learning something because I definitely did, and looking forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you.